Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Now, we are seeing is Air Li Toll culture in Yanshi, Henan. It has long been considered by most as the capital of the Xia dynasty, but it is controversial. In fact, about Xia dynasty, all information we know comes from records of the historical records by Sima Qian, historian who lived in the 2 BC, and he recorded historical stories from ancient times to his own times in his books. In the 1920s and 1930s, some historians questioned the existence of the Xia dynasty. According to current archaeological results, there was indeed a developed civilization in China more than 2,000 years ago, but due to the lack of written records, it is still impossible to determine whether this is the so-called Xia dynasty. So what we are going to talk about today is based on historical records. As we said earlier, you took control of the flood, so Shun gave the throne to you, and Yu's son Qi succeeded his father and founded the Xia dynasty. After Qi became monarch, he sent troops to attack the tribes that did not obey him and conquered all the tribes with his powerful army. In his later years, Qi was very stupid, indulging in pleasure and not dealing with affairs seriously. His son Taikong was even more stupid than his father, and he became monarch. That's the downside of family rule. The lack of competitors means that successors, smart or not, eventually become leaders. And they don't have to responsibly to the people, only to their families, so that they can continue to rule the country. Taikong's rule caused so much dissatisfaction that a tribal chief in the north named Yi killed Taikong while he was out hunting and became king himself. From the moment that, the Xia dynasty fell into chaos for 40 years. Later, Taikong's great-grandson, Shaokong regained power and was determined to govern the country well. For the next 300 years, the Xia dynasty never fell into large chaos again. At the end of the Xia dynasty, people's beliefs gradually changed. People gradually changed from the worship of ancestors and ancient totem to the specific gods. At that time, people regarded the unexplainable things in nature as gods. Mountain have mountain gods and water have water gods, and people sacrificed to the mountain gods for a good harvest, and worship the gods of water for adequate rain. At this time, people's belief was based on nature, but in the next dynasty, Shang dynasty was institutionalized the ritual and became an important part of the nation. Jia, the last king of the Xia dynasty, was a very stupid king. He did not care about politics and played all day. It is said that he liked a beauty named Mashi, who had a special hobby of listening to the sound of silk tearing. So Jia found a lot of silk and tore them up to make Mashi happy. Jia also built a pond in the palace and filled it with liquor. He often sat beside the pond to play with Mashi. The pond was so deep that someone fell in and drowned. The officials asked Jia to care about the people, but Jia said, "What do I have to do with the people? We are like the sun and the moon. The moon did not destroy. How can the sun destroy?" The people were very angry when they heard this, and pointed to sun and said, "If the sun were destroyed, the moon would be willing to die with you." There was a powerful tribal chief named Tang who was very dissatisfied with Jia's behavior. So he decided to overthrow the Xia dynasty, and a man named Yi Yin helped him. The story of Yi Yin is very legendary. It is said that his mother was picking mulberry in each one. One day, she dreamed that the god told her to run east if water burst into basin tomorrow. The next day, there was water in the basin, so she called on the villagers to run east together. On her way to escape, she looked back at the village and saw that it had been flooded. Because of was not listened to the god, she became a hollow mulberry tree. Later, when someone passed by, he found a baby in the tree. The man rescued the baby and gave it to the cook to raise. At first Yi was a slave who cooked for Tang. Yi was not willingly as a slave, so he tried to show himself to Tang. Sometimes he cooks food very salty, sometimes very light. Tang was very angry and called Yi over for questioning. Yi said, "I certainly know that food should not be too salty or too light. This is the same with governing the country. It should neither rush nor slow." Tang was very surprised and thought Yi was capable, so he appointed Yi as the prime minister to help him. Tang followed Yi's advice and did not choose to attack Xia immediately. As others attacked the Xia dynasty, it became weaker and weaker. Tang finally attacked the Xia dynasty and wiped it out at one stroke. Xia, the ruler of the state, was exiled and 400 years of Xia rule ended and a new dynasty, the Shang, was established. The Xia dynasty was the first dynasty in Chinese history. In fact, it was more like a huge tribal alliance than a dynasty, because it had a loose ruling structure and many institutions were not established. As the successor to the Xia, the Shang dynasty decided to consolidate its rule in a special way. Thanks for watching, and if you like, be sure to like it and subscribe to Bamboo History. See you next time.